Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the English podcast with Mandy and Mark. I'm so glad you could join us for another exciting episode.
That's right, Mandy. We're thrilled to have you here. In today's episode, we'll be diving into the intriguing world of cultural differences. Get ready to broaden your horizons and improve your English along the way.
As always, we encourage you to actively participate throughout the episode. Listen closely to our conversation, take note of any new vocabulary, and don't forget to answer our practice questions in the comments section below.
We'll be sharing some interesting insights about different cultures, from social customs to communication styles. By the end of this episode, you'll have a better understanding of how to approach intercultural interactions with sensitivity and respect.
You know, Mark, I find it fascinating how diverse our world is. Each culture has its own unique set of customs and traditions that shape the way people interact and perceive the world around them.
It's truly incredible, isn't it? Take greetings, for example. In some cultures, a firm handshake is the norm, while in others, a slight bow or even a kiss on the cheek is customary. It's amazing how these seemingly small gestures can carry so much cultural significance.
Absolutely. And it's not just about the greetings themselves, but also the body language that accompanies them. Maintaining eye contact might be considered polite in one culture, but disrespectful in another.
Exactly. Remember that time we traveled to Japan? I noticed how people often bowed their heads as a sign of respect, especially to elders or those in positions of authority.
Yes, and how about the emphasis on gift-giving in Japanese culture? It's customary to bring a small gift when visiting someone's home or attending a special occasion.
Right, and it's considered polite to refuse the gift a few times before accepting it. It's all part of their social etiquette.
I think it's essential to be mindful of these cultural differences, especially when traveling or interacting with people from different backgrounds. It helps us avoid misunderstandings and foster meaningful connections.
I couldn't agree more. Being culturally sensitive is crucial for effective communication and building strong relationships in our increasingly interconnected world.
Speaking of communication, have you noticed how direct or indirect communication styles can vary greatly across cultures?
Absolutely. In some cultures, people tend to be very direct and explicit in their communication, while in others, they might convey their message more subtly or indirectly.
It's interesting how those differences can sometimes lead to misunderstandings or misinterpretations.
That's why it's so important to be patient, observant, and willing to ask questions when we encounter these differences. It's all part of the learning process.
And it's not about judging one culture as right or wrong, but rather appreciating the diversity of perspectives and ways of life.
Well said, Mandy. Embracing cultural differences enriches our lives and broadens our understanding of the world.
It's like adding more colors to our palette of experiences.
Exactly. So, let's delve a bit deeper into some specific examples of cultural differences. What are some other interesting customs or traditions you've come across?
Oh, there are so many. But we'll save those for another episode. For now, why don't we move on to our vocabulary section?
Sounds like a plan. Let's unpack some of the key terms we used while discussing this fascinating topic.
Great idea, Mark. I'm sure our listeners will find it helpful to expand their vocabulary related to cultural differences. All right, everyone, it's time to enrich your vocabulary. Grab your notebooks and get ready to jot down some useful terms. Mark, why don't you kick things off with our first word?
I'd be glad to. Our first word is customary, which refers to something that is traditionally done in a particular culture or society. For instance, it's customary in many Western cultures to shake hands when meeting someone for the first time.
Our next word is etiquette, which means the customary code of polite behavior in society or among members of a particular profession or group. For example, table etiquette dictates that you shouldn't talk with your mouth full.
Let's move on to gesture, which is a movement of part of the body, especially a hand or the head, to express an idea or meaning. A wave of the hand is a common gesture of greeting.
Our next term is significance, which refers to the importance or meaning of something. Understanding cultural nuances is of great significance in intercultural communication.
Moving on to sensitivity, which in this context means being aware of and understanding the feelings of other people. Cultural sensitivity is essential for fostering respectful relationships.
Our next word is misunderstanding, which means a failure to understand something correctly. Cultural differences can sometimes lead to misunderstandings if we're not careful.
Next up, we have intercultural, which simply means relating to or involving different cultures. Intercultural communication plays a vital role in our globalized world.
Our next term is explicit, which means stated clearly and in detail, leaving no room for confusion or doubt. Direct communication styles often involve being explicit with one's message.
Let's move on to subtle, which means delicate or faint, and therefore difficult to perceive or understand. Indirect communication often relies on subtle cues and nonverbal signals.
Our penultimate word is misinterpretation, which means an incorrect understanding of something. Cultural differences can sometimes result in misinterpretations of behavior.
And finally, we have embrace, which means to accept or support something willingly and enthusiastically. Embracing cultural differences enriches our lives and broadens our perspectives.
Now that we've expanded our vocabulary, let's put your listening skills to the test with some exercises. Don't forget to share your answers in the comments section below. Mark, would you like to start us off?
Sure thing. Our first question is, what is considered customary when greeting someone for the first time in many Western cultures?
Our second question is, what is the significance of understanding cultural nuances in intercultural communication?
And for our final question, let's make it an open-ended one. Can you share an example of a cultural difference you've encountered and how you navigated that experience?
We can't wait to read your insightful responses in the comments. That was a great conversation about cultural differences. It's so important to be aware of the customs and traditions of different cultures.
It's all about being respectful, understanding, and open to learning from one another. By embracing cultural differences, we can create a more harmonious and enriching world.
And that's a wrap on today's episode of the English Podcast with Mandy and Mark. We hope you found our discussion insightful and helpful for improving your English skills.
Don't forget to give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed the episode, subscribe to our channel for more language learning content, and leave your thoughts and any questions you might have in the comments section below.
We love hearing from you. Until next time, happy learning.